Hello and welcome to my final thoughts and slash review of Hogwarts Legacy. Originally, this was going to be my third impressions. However, I didn't realize how close to the end of Hogwarts Legacy I was, so I went ahead and just wrapped it up. And unfortunately, I am not too happy. However, let's go ahead and just go through the notes I have made over the past few days, and let's go ahead and wrap this whole experience up. So the open world. I just want to mention the open world is actually nice. It's not too bloated, and it might sound that I'm contradicting myself later on. However, it is actually very well handled, and it's sectioned off very well with so and so good aspects, fair aspects, and well handled aspects. Like there's some bandit camps that actually have a check mark, but other things like infamous enemy doesn't have a check mark when they're defeated. Maybe I did something wrong, but it's just there's some things that just are not checked off once they're done, and I just the completionist inside of me is not satisfied by that. So broom flying is also still fantastic. If anything, I would go back. If the sequel brings Quidditch, I would definitely play the second game. Probably, I don't know. It really depends. And so eventually, I just had to start. I had to start cutting the side fat, because it was really just dragging the game along. I really just didn't care about other stuff going on, like just small little missions going on with the characters floating above their heads, and the experience just wasn't there. I really just stopped caring after a while. I was just ready to get the game over with, and similar to a lot of open world games where at the end I'm like, ah man, can I just go ahead and just roll the credits so I can kind of just move on, and if I want to do extra things I can. But however, games these days, they just drag on for too long, and Hogwarts Legacy, the only reason why it feels like it drags on so long is just because the mission is just kind of getting in the way, and then you got level requirements, which I hated in this game. I really hated that you were blocked off by level requirements. It was just very unnecessary in my opinion, because I was so underleveled for every time a new mission came up. I was like, oh, your level's not high enough, and I'm like, come on. I mean, and so we'll get on to the complications of hard mode here in a second. Missions are short and sweet. They can be, especially when you just skip cutscenes and dialogue. Not a whole lot of people are going to do that, but I did. I just didn't find the whole story interesting. And I believe, I don't know if I mentioned this or not already, but I'm not going to mention any story spoilers, or it's just going to be gameplay spoilers, basically. That's all. I mentioned there's this one part, I think it's one of the trials or something like that. It looks like a sketchbook filter. It reminded me of the Scarecrow scenarios from Batman Arkham Asylum. I thought that was pretty cool. However, it was a lot better executed in Batman Arkham Asylum. Here in the sketchbook section is what I like to call it. So it's not much. It's just so scripted in terms of sneaking around. It felt like there were higher consequences in the Batman Arkham Asylum execution of the concept. I don't know. I say that now, but it's probably very similar in general. Actually, it's been years since I played it, but I just wanted to mention that it was very similar in design. And it's not the first time the game has, Hogwarts Legacy has done this. There are a lot of similarities with other stuff in terms of gaming. This very spammy combat may have broken my controller. Just having to constantly press R2 sometimes, having to wait for my cooldowns to come back up, because eventually I just get very aggressive. However, you can't necessarily do that in this game. You're forced to pretty much play a certain pace. There's a cap off in terms of aggressiveness because of the cooldowns, and I really wish there was more integrated cooldown reductions in the gameplay mechanics, such as the more aggressive you are, maybe the cooldowns are reduced or something like that. Maybe attacking an enemy a certain amount of times, perhaps. Same way how Nobody Saves the World did it. Nobody Saves the World had a really good system where if you attack enemies, your cooldown is reduced. It actually allows you to use spells a lot faster, as long as you're constantly attacking. It rewards aggression. Hogwarts Legacy does not do this, and it's not satisfying. Also, whenever you collect a tire, it doesn't let you know what's the dominant perk attribute. It does pop up because the entire time I was playing, it was always telling me that you need greater gear and all of this, and I don't know why it kept popping up. However, whenever you collect something, it just tells you if it's greater or lower. It would have been great if it was showing greater offense or greater defense. I went for the offense attire. I never concentrate on defense because I don't need defense. I'm just because I concentrate on getting through it without having to use as much convenience tools as possible. That's just how I like to play. So defense just wasn't my priority. It was offense because in order to be effective, I really do need to have the attack output, attack points. So I'm going to go into some very odd things that I found throughout the game, just to kind of wrap this whole thing up. There's one thing that when you can transform enemies into barrels, explosive barrels. However, when you're down to the last enemy and you transform them, you cannot throw the barrel for some reason. You kind of have to either wait for them to transform back, or you explode the barrel and they come back. So it's a very odd detail that I guess they overlooked. It would have been nice being able to throw it, but there's no reason why we couldn't throw it. I never tried Legadium Leviosa. I don't know why I said that in a Spanish accent, but maybe it wasn't as Spanish as I thought. But it's just weird how it doesn't give you the R1 option. There's this one scene in particular at the very end. That's a very if you love watching if you're a Star Wars fan, or I mean I used to be. I'm kind of a general Star Wars fan. I wouldn't call myself an advanced Star Wars fan where I'm watching every single thing. I've watched the movies several times. However, there's this one scene in particular that reminds me of the Count Dooku scene where he causes this large pillar to fall on top of Obi-Wan and Anakin, and then Yoda comes in and saves them. There's a very similar scene in one of the last cutscenes of Hogwarts Legacy. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it is very eerily similar. You'll have to see it. Maybe I could go back and make a comparison, but I didn't save the cutscene, so I would have to maybe wait for my wife to get to that part and ask her to save it, and perhaps I can go back because maybe, I don't know. I can't be the only person that'll notice this. Someone has to point this out. And Harry Potter is known to have rip-offs from the Star Wars stories. So it really wouldn't surprise me if someone else caught it. I usually just don't go into that type of content where I'm like, hey, look at that, look at this. I typically, just do stuff like this and just analyze boss fights and challenges. Moving on. Another one thing that happened in the cutscene that was really funny is I kept pretty much the same attire throughout the entire game, other than just adjusting it to where I just kind of kept the same look. It's just different attire perks, greater offense. My helmet flickered throughout the cutscene, which I thought was nice. I'm sorry that I don't have a whole lot of footage referencing to what I'm talking about. This is just footage I collected while practicing the Graph-Warn. No consequences for rule breaking. This is a major problem I had with Hogwarts Legacy, because you could commit a crime, basically, and nothing would happen. Or do something as, minor as not going to class is just not... There's no time aspect in the game, which is very unfortunate. And I'm not saying the game had to be exactly like Bully, but it would have been nice if they took what worked in Bully very well and applied it that way. That way they could have, this way maybe the game would have felt more solid and purposeful. And just going to class just seemed like, it just seemed much more scripted other than something organically going on in the game. It just, you had to, one thing that I did like was having to complete certain very specific things to get a class started, but I don't know, it felt like that should have been like homework, which it technically was leading up to the next class. It just worked so much better in Bully. And every time I was playing it, I was like, I just wish I was playing Bully. And that's kind of how I felt the entire time I was playing the game. I just would rather play Bully because it's just, the execution of all the aspects is significantly better. And whenever you're punished for beating up, heck, even teachers or something like that, you have to mow the lawn. I think skipping class a few times they force you to mow the lawn, and I love stuff like that. it really made the world feel organic and bully. In Hogwarts Legacy, without consequences, I just can't really get into the world that much. You got to have consequences for stuff that's morally wrong, especially when breaking into houses. From what I've heard, you can just break into someone's house, steal stuff, nothing happens, and it's just it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel it feels like you get away with so much. Plus, the character is, deemed as being like the one, and they don't. I don't. Heck, I don't even know if they come out and say it, but it's just. It's the kind of the old tiresome, you are the one character, you're so overpowered, you're great at everything, and I hate hearing that. I want to hear that I'm pathetic. I want to hear that I'm terrible. I want to be a horrible person. Even in the end, I don't want to be king. I don't want to be crowned or sitting on a throne. Heck, even in a game like Dark Souls 2 or Elden Ring, I don't want to be sitting on a throne. I want to get my head chopped off like in Bloodborne. Those are the endings I want. However, in Hogwarts Legacy, you're always getting patted on the back, saying, "Good job, buddy. You're the king." And I don't like stuff like that. Maybe it works for most people, but I just don't. I just don't like it. I don't like happy endings, and maybe that just makes me a terrible person when it comes to enjoying stories in video games. But I just don't like it. I like harsh reality, stuff that feels like it would happen truly organically in the game. And and I understand this is fantasy. I understand that completely. I just like something that feels more, what do you say, just organically right, I suppose, for the lack of a better word. And this story just doesn't work for me. Anyway, moving on. Oh, I post whenever I do a challenge run for a boss fight. I post it because I want to. I post it to social media, Facebook, Reddit, and of course YouTube. I upload the fights individually, I will use the raw footage for these impression videos. I would upload to Facebook and Reddit, and people thought I was modding the game. I was doing these boss fights without rolling, and people are actually like, "Oh, what modding software is this?" And I'm like, huh?" So that was very, very strange to me. And it's not like it's that crazy challenging. It's just having to figure out what to do in terms of not rolling. In the Grafforn fight, I had to make a lot of compromises because obviously the game isn't made for you not to roll, so I have to apply as much as I could. And I was going to talk about the Grafforn fight. However, I just really wanted to wrap things up. I really didn't want to press too much on it, but just for quick mentioning, if I didn't have objects to throw, it would be impossible. Same thing with the armored troll. It just wouldn't have been viable. Oh, sorry about that. Another phone is dying. So yeah, people thought I was modding, and whenever I approached them about this, I'm like, I'm sorry, can you explain why? I never get any responses back. They usually respond like days later or something like that, and where it's just not even fun anymore. I'm like, listen, I don't know what you want from me. I'm playing on the PlayStation 5. I don't play on a PC. Even if I was playing on a PC, I don't mod games because I'm not into that. You can look at my channel. I don't mention anything about modding hardly. Whenever modding does come up, I pretty much I'm disgusted by it. I just don't I hate the idea of modding. I'm not crazy about it. I understand, do whatever you want with the game, with your own game. I just don't like it. I like playing the game for what it is, in its initial design. I may disagree with the designs, and there may be a mod to fix that, but I just don't want to go. I don't like going out of my way to put something into the game. Now, I will organically go into a game and adjust it and make it more challenging for myself, but in terms of downloading something someone else made, I'm just not into that. I'd rather apply something I can do within the game that's present. I feel like if I had to download something to get what I want, it's just not as satisfying. And that's basically how I feel about modding. Hard mode conflict. Now, it's kind of bittersweet of how all this ended in terms of hard mode, and I definitely have a lot of points to make. There is this one of the final missions is called. Now, I guess if in terms of final mission names, well, okay, I just won't mention the name. There is this mission in particular, and it's just waves of enemies, and so the problem with the Hogwarts Legacy combat is that enemies flank you, and some in hard mode I've noticed I switched back and forth. I at one moment I switched the game to story mode just to see how much the game changes, and it made a lot of sense seeing how much hard mode is impacted and why there are so many problems, because the game does not regulate well with the hard mode adjustments. And so what I noticed was with these waves of enemies I was getting, I don't know how many waves there were. I was always just dealing with RNG on the third wave, and just something, just it's almost like the game just forced me to die. I had moments where I would randomly die and I had no idea what was happening. I wasn't hit by anything. I would just be standing there walking around. All of a sudden, the game over screen would pop up. This happened actually several times throughout my playthrough of Hogwarts Legacy, where I would just randomly die. And I didn't record it. I didn't want to record every single bug going on in the game because it would have taken up so much memory and just so much sorting to go through. And maybe I should have made a compilation. Maybe at this point, I'm not even interested. I finished the game, and I almost didn't want to finish the game because of just how much hard mode just was not working out in terms of just bugginess and just. But I pressed through with compromises, and so I switched to normal mode for this particular mission, and there was only 2 waves. I don't know if it was a bug that skipped a wave. I don't know. I didn't stick around long enough or play around with it long enough. I just wanted this RNG mess of a battle to be over with. It wasn't fun. This game does not handle multiple enemies well at all because of flanking and rubber banding. If they're going to make a second game, they really need to work out the multiple enemies because it's absolutely a mess. And my next point, the game is broken on hard mode for the most for the last quarter of the game. It is very apparent. Now there are moments throughout the game where it's like, oh man, that's a little rough. However, in the last quarter of the game, it is really, really bad. And the bugs, maybe, I don't know. I've looked it up online, and other than people saying that the game doesn't work well with multiple enemies, I haven't heard anyone say anything about bugs where just weird things happening. And I know one reason why I don't play games on hard mode immediately, and I usually just play a normal mode, because most games are not adjusted well for difficulty. It's not for the hardest difficulty. It's not play tested. Uncharted 4 was one of the worst ones I've ever seen. I think I got through most of the game, and there's this one part where it was just so buggy I just couldn't do it. It wasn't worth the time, wasn't fun, wasn't satisfying. It was just total nonsense. Witcher 3 was really bad, but I actually managed to finish it, but it just wasn't very satisfying. And I think I ruined my experience with Witcher 3 by playing it on the hardest difficulty for the first playthrough, because it just felt like it wasn't working properly. It felt like the game was working against himself just to make it more difficult, and it just wasn't viable. And a lot of games are like that. The games just do not work well on the hardest difficulty, which is why I just do not like difficulty options in general, because they're not play tested to the fullest extent. This is why organic guilt difficulty is good. Why I love games like Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, and From Software. I know that's a big leap, Dark Souls, Elden Ring from Crash Bandicoot, but Crash Bandicoot, there are no difficulty options. You basically have run through everything, or you can bust all the boxes or collect all the collectibles, get 100% do the time trials. That's up to you. That's organically in the game. You don't have to click on easy mode or easy, normal, or hard just to get that experience. You can just adjust yourself accordingly. You can do the same thing with Frogun. Frogun will only, I don't know, maybe a few hours, and you can finish the game if you didn't care about anything else. But if you want to do everything, every single thing 100%, it's going to take some effort. And unfortunately with Hogwarts Legacy, that organic adjustment is barely there, and it's just not interesting. It's just got a very short-sighted hard mode design, and it's very unfortunate. So there were button registering problems. My wife actually was complaining about it, and I was like, you're just not pressing at the right time. But hard mode is very apparent that there are some button registering problems. Sometimes it didn't pop up over my character's head, and I would just get hit. Sometimes I was standing too close to the enemy, which I was kind of accepting as okay, well, maybe I just shouldn't stand so close to enemies, and I did that. And still, I was just having problems with it popping up. Sometimes that filters will not even show the prompt popping up over your head. Like in one of the missions I mentioned earlier, there is a blue wall surrounding the arena, and if the camera goes outside of it, sometimes it will not register the prompt. And I don't know if that's a hard mode thing or just an oversight of gaming design. I had several moments where enemies would remain rendered after they died, and the only way I would get rid of them was using the ancient special attack. This causes problems because of targeting, which is my next point. Targeting is absolutely a mess in this game. Sometimes the target lock is gone, and you really need target lock in this game, and sometimes it just messes you up in general, and it's just there's really no good way to switch back and forth, and sometimes when you aim towards another enemy, it hits the enemy that you do not want it to hit, and it's very unfortunate how target locking is just messed up in the game. And so I tried, like I said before, I tried on normal mode, and everything seemed to be working just fine. Whenever I switched to normal mode, things seemed right, and of course it makes sense. Normal mode is the intended difficulty, and so it makes sense for things to work on it. Hard mode's just not fully play tested for it to work properly, and it feels like it's working for the most of the game, other than just smaller little inconveniences. But it's not, they're tolerable. However, maybe the game will eventually get some patches. Will I revisit it? Probably not. But I'll get to that in a little while. On my overall opinion of the game. Should I recommend hard mode? That's a tough one. That's really a tough one. A lot of people find the game. See, hard mode is very easy, but it does require some grinding, especially for the last quarter of the game. You can abuse the ancient special meter if you want to do that. I didn't want to do that. For the most part, I pretty much just avoided using that, unless I absolutely had to, like with the no roll with the graph war, and I had to use the ancient special attacks for the second phase mostly, so I could finish the fight without rolling. It will, is it a cop out? Maybe there's some free spacing walking around the graph horn. However, I just don't have the time to really explore that. This is Hogwarts Legacy. This isn't Elden Ring where I feel like I'm passionate enough. The final boss design is terribly antiquated. It is absolutely old. It's not like in a good way either. It just feels like a very poorly designed PS2 boss fight. It's a sectional boss fight. It's a boss fight that runs away. You gotta go to a platform and fight it again. It's just more extensions, and it's just boring. There's really nothing interesting about it. And what sucks is that it had a lot of potential to be something great. Bloated, feels unfinished and rushed. Sometimes breaking the ward orbs didn't want to register. I would hit the orbs directly, and nothing would happen. I would have to do it multiple times, and that's especially frustrating when you're trying to pay attention to what's about to hit you, or something that you're looking for telegraphs from the boss, and you're concentrating on breaking these orbs, and then these orbs don't register, and you're just, for a second you're like, what? And then you get hit by a projectile, and it just was very unfortunate that things didn't work out in terms of the last quarter of the game. Now for my overall thoughts. I'm sorry that this impression seemed rushed itself. However, I'm just ready to move on, and you have to understand. I'm kind of over. There's a lot of disappointment running through my thoughts right now, because I was really hoping that this game was going to work all the way through. Unfortunately, it just got buggy. Typically got buggy like most games with the hardest difficulty that has not been play tested. And this is why I also cannot recommend hard modes for a lot of games. There are a few games where hard mode is actually designed for the game. Games like The Last of Us, Shadow of the Colossus, Guacamelee, Resident Evil 7, Mafia, those games work very well on the highest difficulty because it feels like it's purposely integrated into the game. This game, to state the obvious, this game is excellent for Harry Potter fans. I couldn't recommend it more. I'm glad my wife loves it. This might be her favorite game of all time, and I hope she has a ton of fun with it. Especially just with, I mean, if the game works just fine on normal mode, then there's, I can't recommend hard mode to her because, like I said, there are bugs scattered throughout the last quarter. And I mentioned this before. Hard mode requires a lot of grinding, and plus to be OP, so you can avoid the spam. And I had to, I forgot to mention this earlier. I had to take apart my controller and fix a broken spring because of how much the game's requiring you to spam the waiting for the cooldowns to go on. Because if you don't, if you're not attacking enemies, they're not going to die. You gotta do something where you're waiting for the cooldowns to happen. And maybe I missed something in terms of cooldown. I don't know if I'm missing something in terms of reducing the cooldown. Please let me know. Maybe I'll go back because it just made the game combat so boring. So yeah, there's a little spring in the R2 button, and it actually broke. It must have heated up because I was tapping R2 so much, and it just snapped. Fortunately, I was looking up how to fix the drifting for PS5 controllers, so I knew how to take my controller apart. And I used one of my PS5 controllers for parts, and I took the spring out. I put it into the controller that I'm using, and now it works just fine because the R2 button was too sensitive due to the spring being broken. The game has fun collectibles. I really had a lot of fun collecting whatever I went out of my way to collect. Especially increasing the ancient meter slots. You can get up to 5. Those were really fun to go around the world map and accomplish. I've already mentioned spammy combat. The missions will get tiresome. Even though they're short and sweet, sometimes one series of missions is just you talking to someone. And I don't like that. I don't like just talking to someone and then it says mission complete and like well, all right, well, mission complete. It's just I hate stuff like that. So some missions like that got really tiresome and just very bloated and unnecessary. Just more about story and I don't know. It feels like everything could have just taken place in a cutscene instead of just you walking to someone and talking to them. I just don't like it. Will I revisit Hogwarts Legacy? Most likely not. We got Resident Evil 4, the upgrade coming out, and is it next week? When is that? I think it is next week. So I'm playing that because I love the demo. One of the best demos I have ever played. So you'll know I'll be playing Resident Evil 4. Will I be uploading challenge restrictions for it? Maybe. I would love to. It just Resident Evil 4 is one of the longest Resident Evil games, so it just depends on how much time I have. There's going to be tons of other hardcore fans playing it, so I would have to find something unique to do. I don't want to upload something that's been done several times, and I've done that before. Like Elden Ring boss fights, I've uploaded stuff that hundreds of other people have done, but I just like the discussion. I like uploading it, sharing. The great thing about doing that is just to show how you did it, the solutions that you have come up with or expanded upon someone else's strategy. It's a very fun thing for people to do, and that's why I'm involved in it, because I find it fascinating just seeing other strategies that do not require overpowered tools to get the job done. And that's why I love Elden Ring so much, because it's so well designed that you can do everything bare bones. And you can reduce the amount of tedium just right. The organic difficulty is just I'm sorry. I didn't mean to come in here and praise Elden Ring to death. Let me stay on Hogwarts Legacy. I just wanted to mention how great Elden Ring was real quick because, yeah, whatever. If they release a second game for Hogwarts Legacy, I doubt I'll play it unless they mention they're heavily inspired by Elden Ring. Then I'll definitely play it. But Harry Potter is a world building story, and so they're going to have a lot of heavy exposition. And I already knew that going in. That's why I skipped cutscenes for most cutscenes and dialogue for the most part, because I just don't care about all the explanation going on. I enjoyed the world more not knowing every single detail about it. I just don't care, and that's just me. If you love that, I mean, that's entirely up to you. I'm not judging anyone for wanting to get involved in the world. It's just I just don't like everything explained to me. I guess that makes me overly pretentious. Like, I don't need details to appreciate a story. No, I'm not trying to. Hopefully I'm not putting it out that way. And this open world design is tired. I'm tired of seeing it, and I really hope that we eventually start seeing open worlds inspired by Elden Ring. So my overall thought about Hogwarts Legacy, I don't like giving out scores. Just kind of determine how you think I would score the game, and just leave it at that. You'll probably think 5 out of 10, 7 out of 10. You gotta remember that anything below 7 out of 10 is probably going to be a game that's very broken. And I have mentioned about broken elements that I have experienced in Hogwarts Legacy. However, it may not be what you think it is. And I don't believe in 10 out of 10 games. I don't believe in anything perfect. Elden Ring's not even perfect. Uh, if you want my quick opinion real quick, the closest game to perfection, in my opinion, is The Last of Us. And maybe Sekiro. Even though Sekiro is not my favorite From Software game, I have to admit, it is extremely well done. So anyway, that's my Hogwarts Legacy final thoughts and review. If you have a disagreement, please express yourself and we can have a conversation about it. And those are my concerns, and maybe one day if something's patched that I was concerned about that someone found out about, please let me know. I would love to go back and analyze and take care of boss fights and just upload them and say, hey, this is my strategy. What do you think? How can it be improved on? And so on. However, in the meantime, I have other things I would like to do. I was going to review the Resident Evil 4 demo, but I don't know if that's entirely necessary, but I don't know. I also have a Twisted Metal idea. But I hate to really give out video ideas and then later on they're not done or uploaded. So I apologize for any promises I've had in the past. I mentioned a High on Life review and I haven't done that yet. I just don't have a whole lot of time, and this is why I don't script my videos anymore, because I just don't have the time to write the script and then record the script, and having to go back whenever I mess up. I feel like this loosely expressing how I feel with notes is really the best way for me right now. But anyway, I'm straying off. Thank you for following me on this Hogwarts Legacy journey. And if you would like suggestions on particular strategies, just let me know. I know from playing on hard mode, I did finish the game on normal mode, by the way. I defeated the boss on normal because the game just was not working properly. And I could have gone back and grinded to get all the spam, and just spam the mess out of this ancient meter and everything like that, but I just didn't really see the point. If I was just going to cop out and just use powerful attacks, why don't I just switch to normal mode and just appreciate the design for what it was intended and to its full capacity. I just prefer to do that. So you can say I just copped out of hard mode but I feel like for good reasons. The game was buggy. I couldn't do everything that I wanted to do in terms of restrictions. Is that the game's fault? No, it's not. It's not the game's fault that I couldn't no roll out of everything. I'm not blaming the game for that at all. I'm just talking about the gaming aspects that just didn't work in general, like throwing items, responding to evasion prompts, stuff like that just was not working on hard mode for me. I don't know if other people are having this problem. I haven't been looking up hard mode playthroughs because I just don't want to steal strategies. I just want to play on my own, and so be it, and just keep it that way. So anyway, hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you on the next discussion topic.